Hello and welcome to my August budget closeout. We are a family of 3 and we're currently working on paying down what was over $500,000 of debt and reducing our monthly expenses to try to live off of just one paycheck. We currently do a zero-based budget. We've been doing it for a couple of years now with a lot of sinking funds. So if that's something you are interested in, drop any questions that you may have about how we budget down in the comments and I will get back to you. And if you're just here to see how we spend our money as a 6-figure income family with a toddler, then welcome and I hope you find this interesting. Now let's jump into our closeout for the month. So for the month of August, we have met our goal of having a zero-based budget, so we have nothing left to budget and nothing left to spend. And our bank account balance is a little bit off from our budget balance because we pay for everything on credit cards, and so we still have a little bit of an outstanding credit card balance because that gets paid like a month behind when the charges are actually made. But we always pay it off in full, so I'm not too worried about these not matching up. So let's start with our income. My husband and I both work full-time. I'm a software engineer. He's an electrical engineer. We work for different companies, and I budget off of my gross income. So this is my entire paycheck before any deductions. And for my husband, I budget off of what actually hits our joint bank account, and that is 95% of his take-home pay. So after he pays for the medical premiums, contributes to his 401k, and pays taxes, he keeps 5% and 95% goes into our joint account where we do almost all of our spending. This is just what works best for us because I don't want to budget his personal spending, and I like that we each get to keep a proportion of our income, so whoever is earning more, which in this case for now is me, gets a little bit more of personal spending money. And we both contribute equally proportional to our paychecks to the family budget. So my income this month was $10,537.86. This is before taxes and everything, so I will get into all of my deductions in a little bit. My take-home pay was actually a little bit over $6,000. I think it's like $6,240. If you see any of my daily spending logs, then I go over my exact take-home pay in those. For my husband, he actually received 3 paychecks this month, and so he ended up bringing home $8,346.60. I wasn't quite sure what he was going to take home this month because the last paycheck of this month was a benefits holiday, and so he didn't have to pay for healthcare premiums, but that also means that his taxes were going to increase because the healthcare premiums are pre-tax deduction. So I just made an estimate of what I thought he would bring home, and I was pretty close. We ended up being $126.60 over budget, which means he brought in a little bit more than I guessed that he would. So we had a little bit more to work with. Next, we have interest. This is in our high yield savings account. We currently have about $35,000 in there, and this is a lot of our sinking funds, our emergency fund, and then a lot of the money that we've been saving up to put towards one of our debts. And we earned just over $109 in interest in that account this month, which is really exciting. When I saw that we had over $100 in interest, I was very excited. But $109.36 is what we brought in across all of our accounts this month in interest. Most of that being from our high yield savings account, which I think is still getting us 3.95%, which I think is a pretty good rate. I think a lot of high yield savings accounts have dropped down to about 3.5%, so we're looking pretty good on that for now. Rewards, this is any credit card rewards. These get redeemed automatically. We had $25 redeemed at the beginning of the month and no other credit card rewards redeemed again. These are automatic, as I said, so anytime we hit that $25 threshold, it gets redeemed, and we are only earning 1.5% cash back on our credit cards, but I don't want to have to deal with multiple credit cards making purchases in different places. So we just stick to a flat 1.5% credit card across the board for as much of our spending as we can use credit cards for, and then we pay them off in full whenever they're due, so that we don't have to pay any interest. And currently our credit card payment cycle is about a month and a half behind our actual spending as recorded here. Next, for income, we weren't expecting any refunds, but we got our escrow disbursement this month. That was $4,521.30. It shouldn't have been that much because they were supposed to pay our property taxes with that money, but they decided not to after they had already initiated the payment and told us that they paid them. But we got all of that money back, so we'll have to pay our property taxes with additional fees because they weren't paid on time because the company decided they weren't going to go through with the payment that they told us they made. Very frustrating, but that's just how it is. We haven't ended up paying our property taxes yet this month, and so you won't see that in our spending, but we will be doing it hopefully soon. We have the money. You'll see that I did allocate extra to our home sinking fund so that we would be able to pay our property taxes from that sinking fund. Other income, we weren't expecting any and we didn't get any. This is, I guess, if there's any kind of bonuses or anything, which we don't typically get. Now moving on to our savings. We like to pay ourselves first, so we put our savings as our first priority. A lot of these things either come out before our paychecks hit our account, or we've maxed them out at the beginning of the year. So my 403B, that was $421.52. I'm only contributing 4% of my pay right now to that account, and my employer is giving me a pretty nice match on that. My daughter's 529. We contributed $415 to that. We have a goal of contributing $5,000 for the year, so contributing $415 a month for the rest of the month will get us to that goal. Acorns, this is my after-tax brokerage account. I'm just contributing basically the bare minimum to this. That's a $5 monthly recurring contribution and any roundups that happened. We had 2 this month and they totaled to exactly $11. So as soon as we hit at least $5 in roundups, that gets contributed. So that happened twice this month. So overall we've contributed $16 to my after-tax brokerage account, and we're not really prioritizing these savings, so that's a good amount for me. The rest of our savings goals, last year's Roth, last year's HSA, this year's Roth, and this year's HSA, we are not planning to contribute any more to, except maybe this year's HSA. Originally, my husband's workplace was contributing quite a bit to it, and then they stopped in July, and they're only going to contribute a total of, I think, $500 more. It was supposed to be $1,000, but they backtracked on that and will only be contributing $500, it looks like. So we will still have quite a bit that we can contribute to the HSA at the end of the year. We want to see how much they're going to be contributing before we do the final amount that we'll contribute. Now moving on to our expenses. These are all of our fixed expenses that we basically know what they're going to be every single month. So you won't see things like gas or groceries in here because for us, those expenses really vary from month to month. All of that spending is down in our sinking funds. But because I budget off of my gross paycheck, my taxes come out here. They were $2,958.95, so about $44 less than what I budgeted for. And I like to overshoot how much I budget in taxes because I like to then have a little bit more wiggle room at the end of the month. I also pay for life insurance from my paycheck. This is an after-tax deduction. I think it gets me 3 times my salary in life insurance, which is plenty for us. Next, we have car insurance. That's $195.92. This comes out at the beginning of the month. We're currently covering 3 cars, one with very minimal coverage because we never drive it, and then my husband and I each have fairly new cars. His is 2 years old and mine is 6 years old, 7 years old now, but they're both fully paid off. For utilities, this is just our electric. We have a septic system and a well, so we're not on city water or city sewer. So that's going to come with home maintenance if we ever have any issues with our water or our septic. So we don't have to pay for usage on a monthly basis, but if there's any maintenance that needs to be done, it could be pretty pricey. But $247.50 is what we paid for electric this month. We're on a budget billing plan, so it's a set amount every single month for an entire year, and then they'll reevaluate it. It seems like it was in March or something that they reevaluated it. And it's supposed to be $260, but over the summer we get a credit for allowing them to cycle our air conditioning, so we get $12.50 off every month for 4 months, I think. So we only paid $247.50 for our electric usage, and I think we used a little bit more electricity in July. This was actually our July usage that we're paying in August, because we had a couple of weeks where we were over 100 degrees almost every day, which is pretty hot for the area, and it brought our usage up. Although we keep our house pretty warm as it is in the summer. I think it's like 76 or 78. It depends on like when we're home or what it is at night. We have a programmable thermostat, so we try to keep it pretty warm, and we have a geothermal heating and cooling system, so it's really efficient. But a lot of our electricity actually comes from the hot water heater, from my husband and I taking showers and washing the diapers, because we use reusable diapers for our daughter, so we have to wash those in really hot water. And running the pool pump uses a lot of electricity. Even though we got a more efficient pool pump last year, it still uses quite a bit of electricity. So summer is very expensive, not just because of the heat, but because of the pool pump. So now that we're getting into the fall, it's going to be nice to not use quite as much electricity and pay back our electric company what we actually owe them, because I think we still owe them like $600 or $700 because of this budget billing and them undercharging us almost all of last year. But moving on, we have internet. That's $34.99. This is just basic internet, no TV, nothing else. Daycare, this is like our most expensive thing. Our daughter goes to daycare 4 days a week, and that's $1,463 for the month. This should hopefully be going down in October when she turns 2. Daycares are usually significantly cheaper for 2-year-olds and older, but hopefully that will go down in October and November, but we will see. Acorns, this is my after-tax brokerage account. This is the subscription fee, and this didn't actually come out at the end of the month like it was supposed to. Usually it comes out on like the last day of the month, and it has not yet. You'll probably see $2 for Acorns in September if they can get the September payment on time. Probably just because it happened on a weekend that they didn't withdraw it on time, but it's fine. It's not like I'm getting a discount. I will be paying that in September. And then our last fixed expense is our dental premiums. This is a pre-tax deduction from my paycheck. I pay for the dental coverage. My husband pays for the health insurance coverage because we have access to an HSA plan through his workplace, and we would like to continue having access to that at least for the rest of this year. I don't know moving forward if we are going to keep the HSA plan. The price of the premiums that he pays pre-tax from his account is almost the same amount that I would pay in premiums with my workplace, and my workplace doesn't have a high deductible. It has no deductible, actually. If we were on my workplace health insurance plan, we would be maybe paying like an extra $100 a month in premiums, but then we'd never have to pay anything but maybe $15 or $20 for a copay here and there. But with his plan, he's paying like $500 a month to then pay $200 to go to the doctors anytime we have to go to the doctors. So it's very expensive, especially with having a toddler who often gets sick and needs to go to the doctor. So we are sticking out the high deductible plan this year, but maybe moving forward we will not use it, but then we will lose access to contributing to an HSA. But we do have quite a bit saved up in that HSA that we're investing. So I think we'll be okay as long as we don't touch that. Then we should have a pretty big invested HSA by the time we reach retirement age or sometime in the future when we may need to use it. Okay, next we have our debts. We have our mortgage. This was $2,630. As I said, I got escrow removed, but it takes them 2 months to actually remove it. So in August, I paid $2,630, so this includes escrow. I think about $670 was escrow, and the rest of it is our actual mortgage payment. We will still have a little bit in escrow. I think it's going to be like $100, maybe $130 that we'll be paying towards escrow to cover our property insurance, but I may remove that in the future sometime as well. We didn't budget anything for our truck because we paid that off earlier this year. That's why it's still in our debt section, but we don't have any car payments. My retirement account loan, this is the debt that we are currently working on. And if you saw my Transfer Tuesday, I actually made my first payment towards that extra payment. Every paycheck, $236.22, comes out of my paycheck before I even see my paycheck to pay this loan off. I currently owe like $32,500 on it. It was $50,000 and I've only been slowly paying it off, but I just finally started making progress towards that. So I did make an extra payment at the very end of August. I think it was like the 28th, but it wasn't drafted from my account, so it falls under September's budget. So there's no extra debt payments this month. And finally, our student loans. My husband has about $33,000 in student loans, and we make just the minimum payment of $382. We might pay a little bit extra towards these after we finish off the retirement loan because we just want to get our monthly payments down. And if we contribute extra to them, when it recalculates in about 7 months, I think, it may recalculate down to a lower payment, and that will just be really helpful for our budget moving forward if that's a lower payment. Most of his interest rates on his student loans, they're all below 5%, but we want to pay off the ones that are like 4.5%, and then just probably let the other ones ride for the rest of the 8 or 9 years that we have to pay this off. So now moving on to our sinking funds. I think I funded all of these when I filmed my update, but I think I added additional to the home sinking fund because we need to cover our property taxes in the near future. So our property taxes are going to be somewhere around $3,500, but I just funded an extra $3,000. We currently have almost $7,500 in our home sinking fund, and this is really just for any kind of home maintenance that we may have. We do have probably another expense coming up. We need to close the pool this year, and we don't have a pool cover anymore. Last year, or maybe 2 years ago, we bought a tarp to cover it as like a temporary measure. I mean, you can cover your pool in a tarp like indefinitely. That's what my dad always does. But you need water bags to hold it in place. But all of our water bags have popped. And to replace all of our water bags would be a few $100 to $1,000 or something. And so we want to get a safety cover, one of those ones that you can walk on. But that's going to be about $2,000. So it's either replace all of our water bags and buy a $50 tarp for like over $1,000 and have to replace that tarp and water bags every few years, or get one of the covers that will last 10 to 20 years that you can walk on. And it's only about $2,000. That's also going to depend on how much time it takes to get that cover, because it has to be, I think, custom made, or at least custom measured, so we can get the right one. So that might be an expense coming up. We may not have enough time to do that and just have to spend a few $100s on a tarp, and we may have to hold it down with cinder blocks again, which is what we did last year, but then all the cinder blocks would blow into the pool when we got like big wind gusts, and that was always a pain in the butt to fish those out. Fortunately, we have like a concrete pool, so it doesn't damage the pool when the cinder blocks go in. It's just then all the dirty water on the top of the pool cover falls into the pool, and we have to fish out the cinder blocks, and it's a whole thing. But yeah, we may have run out of time to get the cover that we want, and we may have to go with plan B. So we will have some spending out of our home sinking fund in the near future. So we had to overfund it because of the property taxes, but we should have enough to cover any kind of maintenance upcoming. And if it's anything of an emergency, we can always dip into our emergency fund for any kind of home maintenance. But hopefully that won't be the case. I don't think I changed any of these other ones. Oh, health, I added an extra $30 to. My daughter had a dermatologist appointment in August. We didn't pay a copay when we went. And I think we got the bill recently. We definitely got an explanation of benefits. And I think we maybe got the bill. I haven't seen it. My husband said we got it. It may have just been an email to him. But that was going to be somewhere a little over $200 for that appointment, because we didn't pay any kind of copay at the time. So I added a little bit extra to our health sinking fund because it was already negative, and it's still going to be negative after we pay this bill. But I think in September I'm going to have to bump it up even more. Our health expenses were a lot more than we anticipated this year with our high deductible plan, but you got to pay for healthcare. The other sinking fund, let's see, I put $7.90 into miscellaneous, and this was so that our budget would end up at zero. Miscellaneous is just kind of a holding cell for any kind of money if I need to borrow extra to make my budget zero, or put extra in to make my budget zero. So $790 went into miscellaneous, and then $8,800 went into savings. This is the savings that I was planning to use for paying down my retirement account loan early. I may be dipping into this in the near future to make extra payments towards my loan, but for now we have not done that. Now we have $25,130 in there. We were planning to maybe remodel our bathroom with this money. That's why we didn't just immediately start paying down the retirement account loan, but we might not be remodeling the bathroom. We're still back and forth about that. We'll see, maybe over the winter, but we haven't made any decisions yet. Alright, let's go into our spending for the month, because that's the exciting part, I suppose, to see how much we spent. For home, we spent $48.20, and I don't even know what this was for. We were working on our daughter's room a little bit, so I think we got like outlet covers. I know my husband broke something in the yard, and he had to get some stuff to replace that. Yeah, I don't know. This is just upkeep stuff, basically. For groceries, we spent $262.01, and this was actually more than we had spent in the past 2 months, but less than our average spending, so I think we still did really good with our grocery spending this month. For car and gas, we spent $222.25. I think this is a little bit more on par with what we're going to be spending moving forward for the rest of the year. My husband started using this account recently. Before, he was using his personal spending to buy gas, but now he's using the joint spending. and he buys quite a bit of gas every single week, about anywhere between $40 and $45 in gas, whereas I spend about $25 to $30 a month in gas. Although I do think I had to fill up twice in August, so I think I probably spent around $55 in gas in August. For health, we didn't spend any. As I said, we did have that doctor's appointment, but we didn't pay for it yet. Pets, I bought the rabbits food. That was $27.55. For our daughter, we went thrifting. I don't know that we bought her anything else really this month. I think, was it this month that she maybe needed diaper cream for daycare? I think it was. But I don't know if we counted that in our grocery spending, because my husband may have picked it up at the grocery store. But we definitely went thrifting for her, bought her a few things, mostly clothes. For a phone, we finally spent from this category. We renewed our annual Mint Mobile plan. My husband decided to go down to the, I think, 15 gigabyte plan. He was on the unlimited one. So it was a little bit cheaper than we had expected. So we still have like $150 in there. But we'll see how it works out with using less data for him. We may need to bump up his plan in the future. I don't really know how things are going with that. But I'm still on the 5 gig plan. So we saved a little bit on our renewal because he went with the cheaper one. But it was still $461, which isn't so bad. I know that a lot of people pay more than that for their phones, so I'm happy that Mint Mobile exists and we can pay just $15 a month plus taxes and fees for our plans. Clothing and personal, this is like my personal spending, where I spend my money. Sometimes other categories I'll spend my own personal spending money in and just record it in those categories, but I do have a separate account that I will spend out of when it's stuff specifically for me. Like my husband has his own account when he spends specifically for him, but I record everything on this spreadsheet because I like to keep track of all of that. But I do know that the clothing and personal this month was for me specifically, and I spent $21.94. I think last week's daily spending log, I have a thrift haul of the things that I bought for $21.94 if you're interested in that and you haven't seen it yet. And then for travel and entertainment, this is our first spending in this category this year. We spent $20 at the beginning of the month to go to the county fair to take our daughter and look at all the animals, and I think she had a lot of fun. But that was it for that spending for this month. And we didn't spend in any of our other categories, so we didn't eat at any restaurants, no miscellaneous spending. The DCFSA is typically when I get reimbursed for daycare expenses. We got reimbursed last month, so there's only $420 in there, so I didn't submit a reimbursement again. I think I'll wait until maybe November is when I'm planning on doing my next reimbursement for another month of daycare. And then we didn't spend from any of our other categories. So in total, we spent $1,102.08 on variable spending. So that's actually pretty good considering that we paid for our entire year of phone service from that amount. Our biggest spending categories are groceries and gas, which is to be expected because we are driving quite a bit. My husband drives 80-ish miles a day and I drive like 62. So it's quite a bit of driving, and even though we both have kind of fuel efficient cars, it still adds up with all of those miles. And speaking of miles, I am about 500 miles beyond needing an oil change, so I'm going to have to call and schedule that, and that will come out of the car and gas sinking fund in the future whenever I get my oil changed. Let's take a peek at my spending donuts. So I budgeted that we would put about 50% towards our sinking funds. A little over a quarter goes to our fixed expenses, and then everything else is debt and savings. but we had a much larger income month than we anticipated. If you look over at this graph, our income was that like $4,000 more than what we budgeted because we got that escrow disbursement. And so all of that income had to go somewhere, and it went mostly to sinking funds, which is really our savings. So we ended up at 60% towards our sinking funds, which just kind of bumped our other categories to less. So that is everything for our budget this month, all of our spending, all of our income. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about the way that I budget. If you're interested in this spreadsheet, it is available on my Buy Me a Coffee in the link in the description below. It's absolutely free. You don't need to buy me a coffee. But let me know if you have any questions about my spreadsheet if you decide to use it. I would be glad to answer them for you. And let me know how your August went with spending. And if you're interested in seeing more of our family's journey as we work towards paying down our debt, we do some investing as well as we try to reduce our monthly expenses so that hopefully I can become a stay-at-home mom. I can retire early since we do have quite a bit invested from the past couple of years. But if you're interested in any of that, then I would love to have you subscribe and follow along. Thank you for being here.